Here to the ESL Major League Americas. I am Solid Jake.
And I'm Kubi.
And this is week number 6 here of the group stage.
Yes, it is. An important one. I've been highlighting this the whole time, but we've had some serious changes over this past weekend. Roster-wise, and of course, the later you get into the league, if you've got any ties, those matches that follow, so much more important, so much more impactful to move on to the playoffs.
Right. Now, there is, of course, only 7 weeks of the group stage, and these teams have been battling it out, trying to secure those spots into the playoff. Like you mentioned, only 4 of the 8 teams can advance into the playoff stage. The bottom 4 teams, they go to relegation matches where they have to fight to stay alive.
That's right. All right. Actually, without further ado, why don't we bring up that oh-so-important scorecard, and we can take a look at some of the changes. All right, first one that we need to talk about is, of course, that Synapses Gaming. You say, hey, wait a minute. I remember them taking some series here and there. Yes, well, that is because they have dropped out of the league, and, of course, we're too late in to try to find a replacement. That would be fair. We would have to hold some kind of side. It would just be way too complicated at this point. We're already past the 5th week. So they have dropped out of the league. As far as we know, the team has disbanded.
Yep.
All of the matches that they have played, going forward tonight, everything in the past, all have been relegated to 0-2 for whatever teams that have played against them.
Right. So
they automatically get last place in the league. So that's why we only have one match tonight.
Very true.
And next week there will be, I think, Tuesday as well. We'll also just have the one match.
That is
for this reason.
That is correct. Now, this changes a few things, because you'll notice that Heroes Hype actually had won a few games, or also Synapses Gaming. Yes. They were originally Heroes Hype. They actually had defeated a team called 2ARC. They had some good results, and since they've dropped out, that gives 2ARC a win, putting them tied at 4-1, sitting at the tie with Tempo Storm for the second place. Very impressive standing for them. Of course, Tempo Storm's one loss is to 2ARC as well. Right. So this is now... this has changed things dramatically. Murlocs Inc., I believe they also had a loss, and this helped bump them way far forward. So it's really changed this entire layout quite a bit.
If you take a close look at that 4 through 6 spot, there's some very, very tight standings there. Of course, Murlocs Inc. and Evil Geniuses are tied at 3 and 3. C9 Maelstrom, they're at 2 and 3. What this means moving forward is that actually a good chunk of these guys are going to be playing each other. Most notably, we can focus on C9 Maelstrom. Tonight they are playing against Evil Geniuses, who happen to be one spot ahead of them in the league. And then the following week they are playing against Murlocs Inc.
Right.
What a crazy coincidence, because those are the 2 teams that are ahead of them in the league. So if Maelstrom wants it bad enough, they want to get that 4th place spot to move on to the playoffs. The teams that are ahead of them, they are playing. The fate is in their hands.
I mean, honestly, you can't ask for a better story, because we're leading into the playoffs, and it's going to be a very close race for that 3rd place spot. Now, it's not impossible for 2ARC or Tempo Storm to fall down a little bit. If they were both to lose their games, and if Murlocs Inc. wins both of their games, Murlocs could actually topple them. But at this point in time, the real story is those 3 that you mentioned. For that 4th place spot, we're looking at Maelstrom, Murlocs, and EG. And EG, they're in a weird position now. They're playing Maelstrom tonight, but they've already got their free win next week. So this is their final game in the group stage.
This is true. So this is do or die time.
It is.
Have to, these teams need to step up if they want to try to advance further into that playoffs. All right, so we're at 9:05. I see no lobby, Jake.
Uh-oh.
This makes for an angry Kubi.
Angry Kubi. Well, we can just take a look at this one more time. Now, like we mentioned, you'll notice EG is 3-3. And Maelstrom is sitting at 2-3. That's because Maelstrom, they already played against Synapses, so that's already been taken into account. But this is fast-forwarding a week for Murlocs Inc., and it's fast-forwarding a week for Evil Geniuses. Both of them have been awarded those wins for the upcoming 2 weeks, or I guess today and tomorrow. Murlocs was supposed to be playing against Synapses today, and that kind of makes that look a little bit unbalanced in that regard, in the sense that they have one additional game played, but it's all because of that Synapses disqualification or abandonment, whatever you want to call it. What would you call it, Kubi?
That sounds about right.
Abandonment?
Sure.
They abandoned us? Kubi, we got a lobby.
We do have a lobby, and they're very silent in the lobby, which gives me a sneaking suspicion that they probably have already started drafting without us. No?
No.
Okay.
We're safe.
Okay.
We're safe.
Our Castriners are good to go, as Faye likes to put it.
Okay. Well, Castorinos. I like it. begin when ready. Kubi has laid down the law, and the draft will be beginning any moment. Now, EG has rated up or rating on Maelstrom.
That's the other thing. We had a whole bunch of points we needed to talk about, a lot to cover in a short amount of time. Evil Geniuses has changed their roster up a good chunk. Kawhi Rice and LZ Gamer have been dropped from the team.
Yep.
Is that the correct reference?
I
don't know if they have left or if they dropped, but as far as we know, okay, they've dropped from the team. They're subbing in. Of course, they still had their 2 available subs.
You're allowed pick them a total of 7 people in your entire season playoff.
Sure.
So this is their 2 allowed changes.
Sure. And they're going to be playing with Sheth and who is the other Cathan Luck.
So Kawhi,
yes,
no longer their support, and they took off LZ, who has been there since the start, and they brought in Cathan Luck. So
big changes.
Big changes.
Very, very
to the
big
team.
changes.
And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out for them here in today's games, because this is the first time we're actually seeing this squad in a tournament. Now, typically when we see a new squad, when you have 2 changes like this come into play a tournament like Maelstrom at the start of the season, it can be bumpy. It can be bumpy.
Well, it's I hope that they've gotten a good amount of practice in over the weekend because, as we were highlighting before, this is such an important match for Evil Geniuses to move forward. If they lose here today, it will be difficult for them.
It's
to move forward. It might be in a situation where it's out of their hands and they're relying on some other teams to lose.
I don't think they can advance. I don't think they can advance because if we look at the standings once again, since it's Murlocs versus Maelstrom next week, one of them, no matter what, will be ahead of EG. If EG loses today, EG will be at 3-4. So they're going to put themselves in a position. Oh my goodness, what is that?
Oh, hello. Hello.
that is
Hello,
not
friend.
the intended use. That was off my monitor. That was not the intended use of us looking at the roster. That was for me. But you guys got to see what I was talking about anyway, so it worked out in the end.
Right.
But there is actually going to be a ban on Diablo. Now, it is actually very well known, especially over the last few weeks, that Evil Geniuses likes to play the Lord of Terror, Mr. Dibbles himself, the King of the Court, whatever you want to call him.
The King of the Court? He plays basketball all of a sudden. I mean, okay.
Yeah,
I'll let it slide.
He's kind of looks like this version of Diablo looks kind of like a Space Jam bad guy. You know those monsters, the aliens, when they get all beefed up.
All right. Yes. I guess.
Yeah. Good.
Good. He says.
Good. So Blizzard, please give us Asmodunk and Asmodibbles, and we'll all be happy.
We do have Asmodunk. So all right, we're not too far off from this storyline.
It's not a skin yet.
Yeah, but. Oh man, Asmodan in a basketball jersey? Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. Okay. So we are on Blackheart's Bay. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about that too much. And you did mention the Diablo ban. And Evil Geniuses, I'll throw out some air quotes here. They kind of did invent Diablo in the sense that they were the first to play Diablo in competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in the current state, ever since the patch.
I should always caveat that with within the last 2 months or so, because there's been some time in the past, even back, relating to the Wombo days, Diablo was played quite a bit with that, the APOC too, to follow up with that. So, we do see the ban for Diablo. This might mean a couple things. They're going based on just previous knowledge from their play in the league. Maybe they haven't scrimmed with Evil Geniuses in the past week or so, and they're just saying, okay, what's an annoying hero that we can ban out, or I should say a hero that's annoying for Evil Geniuses to not have in their pick of tanks.
It's definitely not a bad call, though, because maybe they want to deny Stitches here. Maybe they've been realizing that EG goes so frequently for the Tyrande Diablo, the Tyrande Stitches, and they're trying to pull that out. But with this new squad, with LZ and Kawhi no longer part of it, are their styles the same? Has the team shifted? So that's definitely something you have to consider here, and it's got to be weird drafting against a team that it's like, okay, this is actually, they have 2 new players on the squad.
Right. And what they're now good at strategy-wise may have completely changed.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. But so far, the Illidan Rhaegar makes a lot of sense, especially with Uther picked up. You're going to want to have that big ancestral healing. Works very well with Rhaegar. But
double support is absolutely a possibility.
Yeah, it is.
We've seen that run many times in the past. Also, Cloud9 Maelstrom is known for taking sometimes very aggressive compositions in the form of Sonya.
Yeah, it's also...
So they may be building up towards that as well.
I also like the pick on Ravenous here, though, because...
Is it ever really a bad
pick? That's true.
The Zevo is such a highly sought-after assassin. Not this time. ETC. Now, I should caveat that, making that blanket statement. There are some picks where it's bad to grab Nazeebo, of course. Tyrael jumping out. If there's a Diablo and they choose to go APOC, yeah, there's going to be some situations where it's not always the best of choices. More often than not, you will find a way to make it work, as so many teams have done in the past.
For some reason, I just have like this inkling that
What
we're
is
going
it,
to
Jake?
see Lost Vikings in this game.
The Lost Vikings. Who was playing Lost Vikings last week? It wasn't. Was it Maelstrom? Did they play it? Was that in the second game against?
Everything pre-PAX East is just...
It's just a blur.
It's just a blur.
We did see a lot of updates and announcements at PAX East.
It's
going to be exciting moving forward, but that's not now.
Oh, no.
This is now.
So there's that Tyrande, and we should see Stitches followed up because, of course, that's the power of this kind of composition. You get that hook, Lunar Flare lined up, and you throw Hunter's Mark onto your target, and the target just kind of gets evaporated. And, of course, you can throw the stuns out of Uther on top of that. If you so please, you can throw Rain of Vengeance on top. There's a lot of different toppings you can put on that ice cream cone.
Okay, so does this mean that Chthon will likely be filling in the Tyrande role? What is your thought on that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be the case. But Chthon has been in the alpha since day one.
Sure.
He's very well versed. I mean, he's been playing competitively with a array of teams, and right now he's currently a free agent, potentially going to be part of the mainstay for EG. I would, as much as he is a sub, I would almost call this a tryout as well. He could definitely be a mainstay for Evil Geniuses.
That is a good point. Good way to look at it. All right, they are thinking hard about this. Dipping into that time pool. About 30 seconds left. I think Stitches is the right call. What do you suppose they're thinking about right now that is making this choice very difficult for them?
They could be considering, hey, do we not need to grab Stitches right now? Maybe they're going to prioritize that, because does Maelstrom really want to go Stitches etc? And they are going to grab Jaina. Now this is really signaling Stitches, and it puts Maelstrom in a position where they have to say, do we actually want to steal him? Because when you consider the slow from Jaina and then everything else in that composition, it's very scary when you have a hook available.
Good point. They have run very, very similar compositions in the past to good success.
Yeah.
I think, they were spending some time there thinking, what's the actual likelihood of Cloud9 Maelstrom sniping Stitches away and running ETC Stitches? Is that going to happen? They're probably weighing out what they've seen from them in the past. How well does it fit into the rest of the composition for Maelstrom? Is it something that they're even likely to run? You called it.
I was feeling it. It
is Blackhearts. That is probably the most prominent usage of the Lost Vikings. We have seen Lost Vikings on other maps. But
I don't like Stitches here, though. I think it's a better pick to get something like Hammer or maybe Nazeebo or even Asmodan. Asmodan would be a little bit weird with Vikings, though, comparatively. I don't think it's as reliable in terms of like just the team fight capability.
Lost Viking is also, in a weird way, kind of an anti-Stitches hero.
Yeah, you can deny hooks. Like, oh, look, we pulled Olaf. That sucks.
I remember that happening distinctly. The last time the Lost Vikings were played, I think it was on Dragonshire, actually.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember there were a couple times where the team was looking to get that very impactful hook, and they continued to hook one of the 3 Lost Vikings. Even if you do pick up that kill, it's not going to be all that impactful on the rest of the team fight, especially because they still have access to the Longboat Raid. Of course, the heroic that we're likely to see. It's a nice way to deal with it.
If we see play again, I have no words. That's, of course, the other heroic that Lost Vikings do have available to them. It's just a respawn, but Longboat is so powerful. It's a modern-day Odin, as I like to say time and time again. But they have this final pick. They're down to just 40 seconds remaining in their bonus pool, and they've got to think hard about this. Now, like I mentioned, something rank. Okay, they do go for the deny.
You were saying you didn't like this.
They just have so many melee. Their entire team is melee. The only ranged on their entire team is Balog and Eric, 2 of the Vikings, and Balog's ranged is probably the shortest ranged attacker in the game.
Okay. So they're forced to go Muradin? Gosh, that's odd, isn't it?
That's so weird. Now, Arthas
Muradin. Hold on. Tyrael.
But what is Tyrael going to accomplish?
He does have the backup, quote unquote. We've also seen, I think, 2 run a very similar composition with
with
Tyrande, Jaina, and Uther.
Yeah. You're right.
But they are going to go with Muradin.
I don't think ZP's plays a lot of Tyrael. It's not that he's not capable.
Yeah.
I just think that it's more of his style to lean to the Muradin. And this is going to be very interesting. Remember that style Muradin we saw where it's very based on the slow on the auto attacks with his stomp, the W?
This is true.
I think we're going to see that style Muradin because when you have this many melee
they
in the
have
front,
run that. Yeah, it was actually ZPs that ran that style.
Yeah,
past,
so you've got Vikings, you've got Illidan, you've got 2 tanks. If you can slow them down, slow down their auto attacks, just mitigate so much of their efficiency that way, why not do it? But you do make a good point about just the blow up style available with Tyrael because you got the Judgment, and then you just have Tyrande with Hunter's Mark and Jaina just blowing you up so quickly. Very powerful potential there.
It is a style that is difficult to run if the team isn't quite on that synergy level that they would like to be. Tuark has been running that style of play for so long. They feel very comfortable with it. They execute it very well. I'm not so sure that EG might even be comfortable playing that. Perhaps they've just not even been practicing it. It might make sense, but if it's not in the hero pool, it's not in their bag of tricks or play styles, it's not going to work out.
But you still can't forget how much damage potential EG has. Because although it's a very bursty composition, you have to consider that they could actually spec into Pierce if we want to see now a build. Lunar Flare is AoE stun, and then Blizzard. You get people locked in that. It's a lot of damage. So it's going to be interesting. The drafts are definitely not the most common, to say the least. I mean, starting out with a ban on Diablo, definitely playing to each other's team.
Still, anytime Lost Vikings are picked, we're going to be analyzing that
yes.
quite a bit. That is an interesting one. Now, how do you feel about their effectiveness on this map in particular?
Vikings?
No. Better than some other maps? Do you feel this is
my favorite maps for them have to be Blackhearts and Dragonshire.
Okay.
And there's I haven't seen enough games where they're played on Haunted Mines to have a really strong opinion on Mines. I think there's a lot of cool potential for them on Haunted Mines. But again, I can't really...
It seems kind of like that is the case for a lot of the maps. When you think about the objective, even Cursed Hollow, where you could try to potentially, as the tribute is spawning, you leave one in each of the other respective lanes, and figure out which of the 3 Vikings might be most impactful in that fight, and then try to absorb. Like you mentioned with Haunted Mines, you can leave one up to soak, and if you grab the spin to win, that allows you to even clear out for skulls even easier. There's so many ways that you can argue about their validity and their potential on any given map. But we have seen them the most on Blackhearts, and probably Dragonshire is the second most played for Lost Vikings.
Yeah, of course. I mean, just the fact that you can have Eric run around and collect coins and just be like really obnoxious in that regard, where he's a scout, so he has faster base movement speed than really anyone else.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jake, let's get to introducing these teams on the blue side. For Cloud9 Maelstrom, we have Dunk Train on Rhaegar, Biceps going to be playing Stitches, I Dream on Illidan, King Caffeine for ETC, and K1 Pro is going to be playing the Lost Vikings.
Now, the other half of the map, we have Evil Geniuses in the red, with ZPs playing as that Candy King Muradin Chef, coming in as a sub here for the support player, going to be playing on Uther Idra. Playing that Master Skin, Jaina Cathal Luck, also subbing on Vala, and last but not least, it's actually going to be Faye playing the Tyrande.
Okay.
Faye, of course, very much a flex player.
Yes.
She is well versed, and we're gonna be able to see her action, see what she can do with the kind of synergy available from that Tyrande play. Already, you see our little tower battle kind of starting right off.
Don't usually see that too often in competitive matches. Especially somebody dying very early on would be a bit odd. No soak for the bottom lane, with the exception of, I'm going to guess that's Eric. Yes, it is one of the Lost Vikings. Of course, he is the fastest and is able to get from lane to lane the quickest to achieve that soak.
Now, Cathan has to be careful here. He sees this tasty little bearded redhead Viking. And, well, there's a Rhaegar. There's a Dunk Train waiting for him to overextend. So Dunk Train has 2 purposes here. He's A, zoning and, keeping this vision, and B, he's actually going to be able to get these coins. So very quickly with the Lightning Shield, he's able to grab those, and Stitches will lose his life in favor of Cloud9.
Bit of a misplay for Cloud9 Maelstrom. Of course, that is one of the earlier kills. It still does a lot of damage, at least in terms of experience for them. We find them now about a half-level lead back. Still, they should be able to come back with proper soaking in play. Not going to be the biggest kill we'll see this game. All right, some talents, Jake. I see Pierce, and I see Dense Weightstone.
Oh, Dense Weightstone. That's
just extra damage for the Hammer of Justice.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. That's not at all common. I don't know the last time we saw that over Conjurers. But things to consider. This is Blackheart's. The games tend to be shorter. Conjurer's Pursuit is something that gets more and more impactful the longer the game goes on. So this is opting for a more bursty style. Something that I don't know I've ever seen, but if there's a map to do it, it's here or Mines.
Very, very good points. Also, as we were mentioning, the Reverberation, which is that upgrade for the Seismic Slam for Muradin. That's 33% reduced attack speed for 3.5 seconds for any hero that gets caught inside that. The big target, of course, is going to be Illidan, because if you can take that attack speed down, you are really reducing his effectiveness overall in the team fights.
Yeah, and it's going to add up throughout the whole game. We talked about, Illidan, yeah, that's great, but you consider how many melees they have in general can be really scary. But Kafan Luck will end up losing his life. I Dream really far forward.
One, not quite.
No, so it's a trade there. It's a little bit too cheeky there early in the game, and no matter how you look at it, though, it's a win because they missed Soak in this bottom lane, and K1 Pro was here to Soak for Cloud9 Maelstrom, so it is a slight advantage in that regard. But on that note, EG does have the lead in experience.
They do, by a very slight amount. Still, though, Maelstrom has done a decent job catching back up in that department with the race for level 7 to get those impactful level 7 talents. All right, what other talents do we see that's of particular interest? Pretty damage-heavy Stitches build, considering that they do have the double tank. Perhaps they're not expecting Stitches to take as much damage as he normally would. Perhaps we would see something like that amplified healing at level 4.
Chew your food, even
Chew
at
your
level
food,
1.
right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So with those talents being picked up, I think it's smart, and I think it'll be a bio play. They're really going to be relying on Stitches to have more damage output, and building in the Slam makes a lot of sense, but this is going to be cheeky. I Dream is taking a good amount of damage. The Healing Word not going to be enough to keep him alive. Olaf is the next one on the menu, and he will also lose his life. Now, of course, Manipula Viking is only a quarter of a level, but as 2 die, that's still a decent amount of experience, and it's forcing them back.
A very nice rotation from Evil Geniuses there. They pick up a sizable mercenary camp push in the bottom in the form of the Bruisers, and the Giants also grab themselves a couple kills. And Vala actually ends up falling. Is that mid lane or top, perhaps?
Oh, yeah?
Didn't
Yeah,
quite catch that.
It's a great point. With the double tanks, they actually managed to pick up Vala during all this action. But like you mentioned, this Merc push in the bottom is actually a huge threat, because what is this map all about? It's about sieging the enemy team, and by dealing structure damage, you make those cannon shots even more valuable. Chef already sitting on 10 coins, but as he goes to turn in, we can see that Rhaegar, Mr. Dunk Train, got the turn in just before he was able.
The timing was also very well done on Evil Genius's part. As they were doing this push, it allowed them to have a forward location in that bottom lane, so as the chest spawned, they got themselves a free 5 set of coins. And I think that puts them well over a turn, and as you can see, Chef has himself just enough on his own.
Right? But this siege coming out from the first turn-in is doing a sizable amount of work on the middle lane. It will not destroy this first fort, but it's all about having that, advantage and pushing forward to level 10. Both teams are incredibly even. But when you have 10 and you have that advantage, look at this. Caffeine already turning in 7 coins. Dunk Train will put that at 11. Chef going to be able to deny it, but he needs to be careful. Muradin making his way up to assist, and this is going to force the back off. But with 10 coins, can they stall long enough? This is actually very scary. Chef going to get knocked back by Caffeine, and this gives enough time for Biceps and K1 Pro to rotate in.
Ooh, the block on ZP is forcing him to use the Dwarf Toss, and level 10 has been achieved for Maelstrom, of course. Cleanse being used to make sure that Idra is able to get out of that fight, and for now, Maelstrom will find themselves with a positional advantage over the chest. Evil Genius is regrouping. Now
you got to remember, Sage Dive is the one heroic that has been used. All other heroics are available in this game. Biceps, when is he going to pop that future battle? It's going to be too late. The Ancestral Healing is not going to come out. Longbow Raid is forced out of K1 Pro, but caught in such a close quarter position. Pretty much all, 2 members, almost 3, are going to end up losing their lives for Cloud9 Maelstrom, and EG takes a very convincing fight.
I got to give props to Chef. That was a nicely timed, nicely positioned Divine Storm, and that was really what that entire fight was about. They were able to catch everyone out of position, providing a lot of basically targets to work with for Vala, throwing down that multi-shot and just stationary targets to hit with the auto attacks. The damage was there. Even the Longboat Raid came out in an attempt to salvage Still, Evil Geniuses came out on top. Look at it, they're now 5.25 kills up to 2. Of course, the Lost Vikings, all of those kills count as a quarter kill.
But it's a great point to make. I mean, as taking a big fight like that can give you quite the momentum swing, and that's what this map is all about. It's all about having the advantage, having the momentum, and if you can carry that forward, I mean, you can see they're clearing all these merc camps. They're going to keep this pressure across the map. They're soaking better than Maelstrom right now. Maelstrom is a little bit on their back, but not soaking this top lane.
Yes.
And they're looking for a pick, but
they're going to settle for turning in coins in the mid lane. Of course, these 4 coins that Dunk Train is turning in will allow them to take the fort mid and apply a little bit of pressure top, perhaps taking the wall down.
Yeah, that one more coin is still needed, but once that happens,
oh,
yes,
the math. Don't do it on stream. Remember, kids, but don't math on stream.
Olaf, Baylog, they got Ripperoni and cheesed as the bottom lane of Evil Geniuses. All 5 members are there, and we can see that at this point in time, well, Maelstrom, they're not really too worried about this. They're worried about turning in that final coin. Caffeine will get that, and they're pushing forward. I mean, iDream is actually going to get the solo that only 1 cannon will go off. Yeah, the 1 shot will go off to eliminate that.
Heavy pressure bottom lane for Evil Geniuses. They've grouped up, and they are taking out this bottom fort, extending their experience advantage. Now at level 13, they have, for a short, brief moment, they had the talent advantage over Maelstrom. Let's take a look at some of these 13 ones to see how they'll play in effect into these team fights.
This is actually quite scary, though. The stage dive is forced out immediately as we see that iDream and Biceps walk right into this heavy aggression of the Evil Geniuses rotating up. Cathalunok will ultimately end up falling. The Ancestral Healing is on point for iDream, but Biceps is so low. The kills are enough. Lunar Flare connects, but it's not going to be able to finish the deal. And what does Illidan do when he has an advantage in a team fight? He cleans up. He's chasing on in. ZPs will be the next one on his menu. That longboat raid, just continuing to raid his enemies. And Chef, can he dodge the hooks? No,
not quite.
He cannot.
Almost juked in time. Oh,
ace?
Won't be. Yeah, that is going to be a full ace for Cloud9 Maelstrom, and they needed something like that to get back into the game, and that was absolutely it. Okay, so this map is all about momentum, and you'll find that swings like that on this map they're quite rare.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes teams will catch an advantage, and they will continue to sort of play PvE throughout the rest of the fight, just keep collecting coins, find the opportunities to turn them in, and they can avoid team fighting for the rest of the game if they so choose. If their positioning is on point and they're keeping track of where the enemy team is. Not the case. Maelstrom was behind, but we saw that the rotation, especially they had almost the entire team fight in Putrid Bile.
And look at this.
The heals.
Look at this. EG is looking to pick them off. They're trying to find them out of position because they know there's so much more for Maelstrom to lose. Maelstrom has a ton of coins right now, so EG wants kills. What is Maelstrom doing? Playing safe. They're backing. They're saying, we don't know where you're going to party bush. We're going to move back. We're going to play it safe, regroup, and then just collect coins across the map.
Absolutely. Looks like they're going to take the Bruiser camps top. I actually saw a few of the members had their planned route up to the boss. I think that they probably have decided, yeah, we're ahead, but not that far ahead at the moment until we have a good position read on where all the members of Evil Geniuses are. We can't quite take that. Or if we get a kill, both teams will be, it looks like, trading these chests and quite a few coins available for both teams.
Now, EG has a interesting call to make. Do we fall back for the Bruisers? Now, okay, now as Maelstrom is showing multiple members here in the top, they're showing that they're trying to force the fight. Maelstrom's saying, look, we can take the boss. If you're not careful, we're going to take the boss. And they're trying to bait this, but EG is not taking it. They're just going to clean up their Bruisers, collect those coins.
Yeah, and like we were talking about the map control, how important it is. While Maelstrom is sort of posturing for this spot for the boss, they have control of the mid lane. We just saw that they were able to scoop up the pirate camp on Evil Genius's side of the map, and it looks as though they're going to try to bait in, and Evil Geniuses, they're not taking it.
Oh, so we have a bit of a disconnect here on Faye. This is going to make it impossible for them to engage, as Tyrannobot is walking forward, but she is now back and connected back into the match. But during all of that, the boss will get snapped up. The root comes out onto ZPs, the hook goes in, and the damage is done, but forcing his heroic out, Putrid Bile is used in response.
Looks as though Maelstrom will opt to back up despite having that heroic used. Although Avatar was popped for ZPs, Looks both teams are going to back up, and Evil Geniuses will be forced to clean up this golem. Yeah, I think that disconnect came at an incredibly unfortunate time. I think Evil Genius was posturing like, okay, how can we approach this fight to try and get the most out of it? Do we wait a certain amount of time so that we can guarantee that some of the members of Cloud9 Maelstrom will be lower health, so that way we can start the fight in advantage? And then unfortunately, they disconnects right then, and it's like, okay, well, we might have had a plan there, but we can't execute it with precision, and that is one of the more precise moments.
Oh, it's very unfortunate.
So unfortunate, yeah.
But a few moments can do just that. Level 16 about to finally be attained for EG, and that was the other thing holding them back in that fight. Even if they had Faye, you don't have 16. You're down a talent advantage, so it's kind of a bad situation to go in because you have to consider Pulverize and Earthgrass Totem. Suddenly, the amount of control over the battlefield that is available to Cloud9 Maelstrom is actually much, much more significant.
Absolutely. But we do now have 16 for both teams, and more notably, I'm looking at Evil Genius's side for their talents. Double Imposing Presence, and we talked about that Reverberation talent that was picked up for Muradin at level 1 to reduce the attack speed. This is another effort just to make sure that Illidan, because they realize the threat that Illidan has in the team fights, if he's able to get in with enough CC, he can really clean up teams. This is their attempt to reduce that attack speed, to reduce Illidan's effectiveness.
Man, they were able to turn those coins in so safely because the Farsight out of Rhaegar was so on point. It just having exact knowledge of your enemy team is such an advantage that teams will just wait for it to expire. Wait and wait and wait, but the Divine Storm comes out. iDream is getting the Ancestral Healing just on time, and he metamorphoses into the fight. Chef is now getting very low and will fall. Faye is the next one that is going to collapse, and I mean, we see this time and time again. When you have that Illidan in the front line, how is she still alive? Okay, Faye ultimately does fall. Caffeine, a little bit too aggressive with that stage side.
Yeah, absolutely. Idra is going to have, he does have sprint to get out, and he's going to have a tough time escaping. Dodging that hook is very critical in the amount of slows. With one well-timed Blizzard, he should be able to escape here. The rest of Evil Genius is rotating around, but iDream is actually diving in pretty hard. Idra finds the safety behind the wall. Close call.
You know, if the team was really far forward and that stage dive went in, yeah, maybe they could clean them up, but they were still kind of chasing below. They were still cleaning up Faye and chasing that Jaina that played by Idra. So,
still, Maelstrom takes a 2-to-1 advantage in that fight. And if you guys were wondering, why is Rhaegar so strong? I think that fight is very much a poster child for that. I mean, how much health did Illidan have before, but ancestral enough? And then as soon as he gets back up to full HP, he can metamorphose in, get the oh my goodness, it just
he becomes impossible to kill
much of an impact in that fight.
Yeah. Okay, so Olaf does end up falling, but of course it is only a quarter of a level, and it's just a minor annoyance for the Lost Vikings player. Still has plenty of efficiency and presence on the map, and that last coin is going to be abandoned. No bicep says no coin left behind. Scoops the scoops.
King Stitches, look, he's got so much bling, he can't leave any behind.
It's true. It's true. How does he afford all those nice jewels? He's got to collect all the coins. And EG is making a very aggressive rotation up. The Lunar Flare will, or excuse me, the Sentinel will ultimately end up dismounting King Caffeine, putting him to an awkward position, and they're not in a position where they want to fight. Maelstrom is being very cautious. That's not the target they want. Muradin is very hard to kill. He can just dwarf cross himself over that wall, and the Farsight giving them complete vision around this whole section.
The Lost Vikings putting themselves in a position to potentially body block. Biceps moving in with the Putrid Bile to have control over that teamfight. Starfall going down. They're looking. Evil Geniuses wants to get out of here. They realize this is not the fight to take, but iDream metamorphoses and then gets that ability to control the team. He's just throwing those autos down, and it is having such a huge impact. C9 Sheth finding himself out about a quarter HP, and the stage dive is just going to be enough to secure the kills on the retreating Evil Geniuses. Faye is going to fall here as well, and it is going to end up at a 4-0 maybe.
Yeah, Chef will likely get away. I don't think they can stop him, but you know, that's iDream's target. With the lightning shield, it might be just enough. Yes, Chef will ultimately end up falling. The body blocks.
Not quite, but this puts them in a very nice position. They've already chased them far enough to the core, and that is all 5 members of Evil Geniuses that have fallen. I gotta say, I like the play that Evil Geniuses did there. Yes, it was incredibly aggressive, but we were telling the story time and time again throughout the explanation of this map is that it is very snowbally. It can turn into a PvE fight, and that's exactly what Maelstrom was doing. They were just backing up, taking all the safe camps, and because they had that 2-level advantage, it was more than enough for them to just bully Evil Geniuses around map positionally, and just continue taking those coins, continue getting the turns, because in open field, it's probably very difficult on even terms,
right,
with the level advantage, and soon enough they'll be at level 20. So much more difficult to engage. So why not try to find a weird angle to engage from, something that Cloud9 Maelstrom wasn't expecting. We weren't expecting to see a play like that.
And the way they initiated it too, they shot that Sentinel in, trying to dismount people, trying to get people off guard, and it gave them vision. And what they saw is Maelstrom, spreading. They split. They just got out and they split. But they've repositioned very well, and they managed to take that fight. And so much of that fight came down to Illidan, because as soon as that meta went down, Sprint was already used on the Jaina. And when Jaina doesn't have Sprint, she doesn't have mobility.
Right.
And she can't get away from Illidan, she dies.
It's a very good point.
Plain and simple.
It seemed like a lot of the team fights that ended up going in C9 Maelstrom's favor, it's just all Illidan. Some very nice ancestral healings, nice stage dives. I mean, the auxiliary plays were there. But man, Illidan, given the control with ETC and Stitches, with Putrid Bile and all of these CCs available to him, he can do work, and there just wasn't enough control to stop Illidan on the Evil Geniuses side of things.
I think they're going to either ban him out or first pick him.
He's often banned, and that's why.
He's so impactful. If you can't deal with him, especially when you throw Ancestral into the mix, how many times did Ancestral... It's not even just the power of Ancestral, but it's the power of keeping Illidan alive. So with like that second health bar, that makes it so scary, because they try to blow him up. They're like, all right, we have to kill the Illidan, because they're exactly right when they're thinking, we have to kill the Illidan. But guess what? Ancestral's ridiculous, and it just keeps you alive.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's why Rhaegar's my boy,
That's right.
We have a special bond. Wolf bond.
Do you?
Wolfpack.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the choice of Blackheart's Bay, and I think that was Evil Genius's opt to go to this map, because Maelstrom won the coin flip, and they opted to go for first pick.
So that means it is in fact
pretty sure that means the Evil Geniuses are given the choice. So I wonder if they had a specific plan that maybe was taken away from them during the draft, they didn't quite get to execute because the Stitches pick up that we weren't even expecting to see.
It was definitely like it was definitely a pick comp though. In every right, and with the ban on Diablo, and then the steal on Stitches, their pick comp didn't end up panning out, because when you see Tyrande and Vala, and then of course Jaina all picked up, that's very just like, we're gonna blow you up. And especially when you look at Blackhearts, it's like, okay, they probably found that pick comps work incredibly well, because the objective is literally sitting on a hero. So if you can pick that hero and steal their coins, it makes a lot of sense. But banning out Diablo in that steal on Stitches could have completely foiled what they wanted to do.
Very nicely played in the draft phase for Maelstrom. If they got the read on, and we know that that's what Evil Geniuses has been. Right. They've been liking to run that in the past. So a good steal on their part.
Yep. But on that note, we're gonna get ready for a quick commercial break, guys. We'll be back with the second game of this best of 3 series tonight. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a few. Ladies and gentlemen, nerds, welcome back here to the ESL Major League Americas. This nerd happens to be Lord Cubius Maximus.
And this guy right here is Solid Jacus.
And of
Senior
course...
the third. He wasn't expecting it.
No. Okay. Senior. I didn't... Senior the third.
No.
Is that a thing?
I was like, what title can I add like right at the end? And I should have just left it with senior. Sorry, guys.
All right.
I'll work on it.
If you guys are just tuning in, we're just going to recap this incredibly quickly. This is do or die. This Evil Geniuses, they have a free win over Synapses as they dropped out of the league. So this is EG's last series in the group stage.
Yeah.
Top 4 teams in this standings list, they go to playoff. Bottom 4, they go to relegations. Playoffs means money. So money is on the line. If EG loses here, if they lose this next game, they're done.
That's a very good point, because next week we're going to be seeing Murlocs and Cloud9 Maelstrom facing off, which means whoever
wins that,
right,
they win. They're done. Because Murlocs, you'll also notice they're 3-3. They got a free win versus Synapses today, so they have their win, and it's all going to come down. If Maelstrom wins this series, it's the tiebreaker between Murlocs and Maelstrom, and EG is
in the final week. Man, how exciting is that? I love it.
But yeah, no, it really couldn't be much better. Much better. You know what else couldn't be much better? A double Diablo ban.
What?
2 games in a row.
Yeah, you're right.
Says no, we don't want any of the Lord Dibbles.
I don't want any of that. All right, so we are going to Cursed Hollow. Plans change a little bit. Do you expect to see Lost Vikings again? Do you feel as though it was enough of an impact to even try it out on a map that's perhaps a bit less standard?
Vikings?
As crazy as that is to even mention Vikings and the word standard in the same sentence.
They helped soak a lot in that game.
They did.
Vikings, they had their utility. They did a lot of damage. The damage was very high. I think they were well worth their pick. And we talked about Illidan being a problem, and Illidan is scooped up right away. But Evil Geniuses, they have a response. They expected this. They expected the Illidan pick, and they said, okay, have Illidan. We're going to take Rhaegar Uther.
They're trying to just out-sustain.
Yeah.
And make sure that there isn't... Rhaegar is probably more of a steal than anything else. They want to make sure that ancestral healing isn't available for Illidan. If he doesn't have the freedom to be in the face of the enemy team, throwing down those auto attacks while in Metamorphosis, then he doesn't have the capability to really, be effective and dominate those team fights like we saw last game.
Yeah.
So I like it. There's some good picks from Evil Geniuses there.
But they leave Vala open, and Tyrande should be picked up here, I think. Tyrande is that pseudo support. She has synergy with Illidan, and also you'd be giving Tyrande to already the Rhaegar Uther, which is quite scary because it provides additional sustain and also provides that burst damage. And we know they like that pick comp, and they always lean on Tyrande. So I think Maelstrom will likely try to scoop her up.
Do you know anyone on Maelstrom that plays Tyrande? Anyone that's particularly notable in the Tyrande department?
Yo, Faye likes Tyrande.
I'm sorry.
Maelstrom.
The dunk.
The dunk. And there it is.
He's the dunk. He has had some pretty phenomenal Tyrande games in the past.
Yeah.
So there was no question as to whether Tyrande was viable or even good enough. Yeah. Dunk Train has one of the best Tyrandes in the business, so this is a very sensible pick.
Yeah.
I like it.
I really can't argue. I mean, so much damage output on this team already, and having that healing ward is going to be crucial to help them live in this sustained style. Because Tastadar, he's not in the picture. We already have the double support, and this is going to be EG leaning towards the rest of their composition. Now, since they can't get Tyrande, do you think they should still go for like Stitches Jaina, still get like a bit of a bursty style, or kind of scrap that concept and go for something more like ETC?
I want to see ETC Hammer.
ETC Hammer, okay.
They already have the double support. They can provide enough protection to the Hammer.
Yep.
They could go even, it depends on how confident they're feeling. Especially it's going to be a lot would be on Sheth to make sure that the zoning and the CC is there, along with ETC if that's what they opted to go for. But they could go ETC Hammer and then final pick go for either Jaina or Nazeebo, depending on what is available. If that's the style they want to go for that more defensive play, for that, hey, you need to engage into us, especially after level 16 when they have the hover siege. The effectiveness with the auto attacks is very impactful, and there's no imposing presence available. Okay.
I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
A little bit? Little putrid bile?
a little bit of putrid bile. I'm excited because this is such a hard team to kill. Now, they have a fair idea of what Maelstrom wants to do. They're pretty much saying, look, you got to get at least Brightwing or Malfurion. You don't have a choice. But they're also trying to force the tank. And if they take both ETC and Stitches, they're forcing out more or less Muradin, because honestly, this is not a composition where you can go in with Kirill and try to pick someone off.
No, absolutely not.
it's not going to work. So you need to get something that's more sustained tanking, which is Muradin, or maybe Arthas. We haven't seen him in a long time, though.
Gosh, hold on. They might abandon that idea altogether.
The no tank, the full on Illidan life?
They could go. Do they have enough support to go Illidan Sonya? That's the question.
I see.
I don't know if they have enough. I mean, they will have, of course, some with Tyrande in the healing ward. Does Malf offer enough support in that sense to make sure that they can keep those dive comp style heroes, Illidan and Sonya, alive? Maelstrom does like to run it, and they will have some additional CC follow up in the form of that increased area on the Lunar Flare at level 13 and Rain of Vengeance if they choose to go for it. I like the spot the Evil Geniuses has put themselves in. It's, of course, very sustain heavy, and of course it's going to be very difficult to kill whomever is available on their team, aside from that one hero that they want to protect. But they've left themselves so many options based on the draft of Maelstrom. They could go Jaina, like we mentioned. They could go Hammer, and they could go Nazebo. Any of those would work.
EG's in a really good position.
It's a weird composition, like we mentioned. The double
damage.
Tank, double support. The damage is so low, but if it becomes impossible to kill them, and you just control the area you're going to be fighting under, i.e. Cursed Hollow and the tributes,
right,
it could work.
Like, how do you penetrate that line to get to the Sergeant Hammer, if that's what they go for? Like, Hammer could even go Graduating Range, which isn't a common thing. We tend to see Cover Siege. But Hammer could just pick up Graduating Range, get to that tribute, siege up, and just play video games while it fights. Like, I'm just gonna load up a Hearthstone game and actually just it'll find the targets. It doesn't even matter what you shoot.
It doesn't matter who you hit
because your team's not gonna die.
Still, I have to mention that there is no imposing presence for Cloud9 Maelstrom, and if they go Sonya, they still won't have an imposing presence.
That's actually a huge point.
There's nothing, I think they're thinking about that right now. Well, if we take Sonya, there's nothing that really slows down. Okay, I imagine this is going to be a quick hammer scoop. I'd be so shocked to see anything else.
Quick hammer scoop. He calls
Put that plow on the front of that tank. Scoop him up. Let's go.
Kubi goes to the Cold Stone Creamery. He goes to the Ben & Jerry's. He goes, give me a quick hammer scoop.
Quick hammer scoop.
Give me 10 of them. 10 quick hammer scoops.
Okay. Good times. Yeah. I'll go there and I'll blurt that out to them and see if they know. They don't know.
They find a hammer in the back room and they just stick it in a cone and they just like, is this what you wanted, sir? Okay, well, they're thinking about it. They have to weigh their options because you can never count out something like Ravenous Spirit. Ravenous Spirit is, of course, very strong, but it's a bit more of a one-trick pony where Hammer is not.
There's a reason I don't like Ravenous Spirit is that there is a finite amount of time that you can use it.
No,
of course, it channels for something like 4 to 5 seconds, right? Once that's over, they could just back up, wait it out, then dive back in. There's no sustained presence, no sustained threat that you would get with the Hammer. And guess what? It's auto attacks. There's no mana usage on Hammer's part.
Also good to point that Heroic Leap just shuts down the Ravenous Spirit too.
Of course, if they can get there.
Hammer makes so much more sense, and we do see it picked up. So that is the draft for game number 2. This is like we talked about, the lifeline of Evil Geniuses in this playoff series, because if they do not win this series, they have no chance of getting that 4th place spot.
They went for a more standard EG style draft last game. Didn't end up panning out for them. I like them going for something a little bit less well traveled. It's an odd set of picks. I don't recall having seen a double top tier support double warrior into Hammer pick. I don't think we've seen it, not recently. Not in the games we've casted.
It's so uncommon for that to be picked, though, because we see bans out on support so frequently. We see bans out on that kind of stuff. So getting Uther Rhaegar is a big win as it is. But then so you have the 2 best supports in the game, and you have the 2 best warriors in the game. That's going to be incredibly hard to kill. And Illidan's a hero that thrives on lower health heroes. He thrives on being in your face when you have no health pool. there's a bajillion stuns to greet him. It's gonna be. If I was playing,
this is gonna make for some of the best fights, though. It's gonna be so good because it's like completely opposite play styles. The most defensive way to play versus the most offensive way to play. What's available in the current meta, and even what's even outside of the meta a little bit, because we don't see this type of style from what EG has drafted. Right? This could be crazy. I'm too excited.
Too excited.
Too excited.
Well, Kubus Maximus, Game 2 is going to be a Cursed Hollow. The map is loading up, and what sides do they spawn on? They're going to be swapping sides.
Oh, they're swapping sides for you. No matter, I'll get you a quick introduction.
Oh my goodness.
On the blue side, for Evil Geniuses, we have Chthon Luck on Rhaegar. Faye's going to be playing Stitches, probably a bit of an odd role for her. However, moving on, Idra on Sergeant Hammer, of course, C9 Sheth on Uther, ZPs on ETC.
And on the other half of the map, we do have our red team with Biceps playing as Malfurion King Caffeine on that Sonya Dunk Train. Going to be playing Toronto once again. K1 Pro, this is the game he's playing Vala and I Dream on the Illidan. This is a very dive-centric style played by Maelstrom, where they're going to want to go in with the Illidan Sonya and dish out a ton of damage. Problem being, they're going to be greeted by some big, beefy bodies, being Stitches and ETC.
I get it. Big beef. Huh. Ugh, I'm disgusted. Okay, some things to talk about talent-wise and what we should expect to see with the builds. I see that Stitches has already picked up that slam, the increased damage. Fully expect to see that fleshed out for the rest of the talent tree, right? They need the damage, and it's sustained damage over time, not a huge amount of cooldown for the slam, which I think is 10 seconds or so. So that makes a lot of sense. ETC is probably going to, I wouldn't expect to see anything different from the normal. That's just that full sustained damage over time, which they need. All right.
Let's look at this roaming style between Sonya Tyrande. Typically, we see Tyrande roam a lot on this map, and she's usually paired with something like Kerrigan, Muradin, Arthas, something of that nature. But Sonya's not at all common because she has the Ancient Spear, which is great, and she can deal a lot of damage, especially once she starts getting those talents for Slam. But do you think it's going to work out against this kind of composition?
It can. It absolutely can. You also have to consider the Spear is it's a stun, so that can perhaps deal with some movement options. On the other side, there is Whirlwind, which can get you to the other side. You're allowed to pass through heroes to try and get a better position on body blocking. It can work out. We'll have to see what Evil Geniuses does to combat this, and it looks as though they're expecting a Faye throwing the blind hook into the bush, fully expecting that rotation from C9 Maelstrom.
Yeah, they're playing to the style that they know this roaming composition can do, so they're just looking for that aggressive roam. And that's how you have to do it. You have to be in their head in that kind of regard. And Lunaflare will not connect with anything. Idra just continuing to pressure. Idra's Sergeant Hammer is so obnoxious because he does not stop pushing ever. He's the perfect hammer in that sense. Biceps going to be able to get out of this with a nice root.
I was almost expecting Idra I wanted to see if he was going to pop the thrusters and try to get in the way and use the concussive blast. But I figured probably not worth it at this juncture. All right. Jake, I got a question for you.
Okay.
For the support side, should we expect to see the supports opt a little bit here and there for damage talents when they can pick them up, or should they just go full heal and play their strategy to a T?
I think we'll see Feral Lunge, that's about it. Beyond that, it's going to be a full-on supporting style. I mean, we are seeing Farsight, so he's opting for less sustainability in terms of his mana pool and in terms of his health pool for the Vision, and I think that's the perfect thing you're going to do, because you don't need to heal as much. You have an Uther. You have like this crazy support style. And also note that you have the tanks that can go with it. Instead of tanks going a more tanky style with amplified healing and with Chew Your Food, they're the ones going to be opting for damage, and that's what we're seeing so far.
Good points. Idra already finds himself next to this tribute. Good position for him to be in, especially paired with Stitches and Uther. That is quite a bit of protection. We did not see Maelstrom press too hard.
Wow. And Chthon actually lost his life. So
I take it back.
Just one quick turnaround. I mean, it was just enough. The final slam from Sonya coming out. Even the totem, the healing totem, was not going to be enough to save his life. Right.
So that rotation perhaps paying off. They traded that one kill for the one tribute. Puts C9 Maelstrom at a slight advantage. They do have that level 7. Oh, what's this? All right. Quickening Blessing. Jake, how do you feel about that? Throw that onto Illidan in those team fights?
It's something I've actually always liked on only like 2 heroes. Probably like Illidan and maybe something like ETC. It's hard to give up True Shot Aura or Battle Momentum because those talents are both massive. But in this regard, if your mission is to kill a Sergeant Hammer and that can help it, you know, go for it.
They should do everything in their power to make sure that they can achieve that goal. That said, would you expect to see Elun's Grace over? Is this isn't Lacey, that's 13. During regrowth. Or do you think that they should really just focus on what little healing they have just to make sure that they can optimize it?
I think they have to. I don't think Mouth is an option, unfortunately. It's going to be a full heal build. I mean, we're not going to see anything like Twilight Stream. It can work when it comes to the leap. There is a bit of, you know, potential there for Heroic Leap and Twilight Dream, but when it boils down to it, it makes it such a one-trick pony where Tranquility is like allows you to just keep up and draw out those fights and keep fighting. So I'm pretty certain that we'll see Tranquility in this game.
Tribute number 2 going to C9 Maelstrom. They actually had full vision of Sonya, opting to capture this Bruiser camp. Not going to put any pressure on at all, just continuing to soak those lanes. I want to catch up in the experience. The race to 10 is real. They got that half level, C9 Maelstrom does, and they're going to try to push that timing attack if they can.
Yeah, I think the race to level 10 very much in favor of Cloud9. They've been doing their best to keep this push on. iDream has been sitting in that top lane, just keeping pushing. His self-heal is enough for him to get a little bit, you know, aggressive on those towers. But in the bottom lane, of course, Hammer has been doing quite a bit of work in the same time. So that level 10 will become a moment now.
Yes. You see Cleanse was grabbed for Uther. We can expect that to have a huge amount of impact in these fights, considering the style. Ooh. Yes, you see what I see?
Wrath of the Berserker.
Yes.
And Cloud9 is actually going to be taking an offensive boss pickup. Now, they will be spotted, and they're going to back up. So they force the position here onto EG a little bit. They get eyes, and they just, without hesitation, they turn around. Faye sitting there on Stitches might look for a hook onto K1 Pro, but they have eyes of this. But there is that stage dive in, doing a lot of damage. Tranquility, keeping King Caffeine aligned in the backline, and there is that Wrath of the Berserker in the front. Now, that gives you so much damage output, but this is killing. Gonna heal ZPs to full. This incredibly tanky composition that Evil Justice has drafted is so hard to get a kill.
Both teams doing a lot of damage to each other. No kills were picked up. Meanwhile, there is a tribute available top, so we will see these teams re-engage each other at this point. Not a critical tribute to grab, but of course getting that advantage. The 2 over 1 tribute-wise allows you to press the hand when it comes to the next tribute, so both teams are obviously going to get very, very aggressive over it. All hands on deck.
Yeah, you see, we do have our Barbarians trying to increase the Fury, soaking that top lane, pushing it back, and just getting as much health from Fury before re-engaging. iDream is taking a lot of damage. Lunar Flare is going to be enough to kill for a little while. The first aid coming off, keeping that Illidan player alive. And this is, I mean, the Fury here on King Caffeine. He's doing so much damage. The dive forward, the rotation between the tanks, switching positions. Faye has to back out, and they're going to bully them off this tribute, but no kills.
Yeah, they weren't feeling confident in the position to try and keep Idra in a position to continue throwing out that damage. That's really what their team is going to come down to in terms of whether they have the effectiveness in the team fight. It has a lot to do with their confidence and their ability to execute. They have to be in a position where they feel and they know that the synergy is there between the team and that they can accomplish keeping the hammer alive and protected. And it wasn't quite the case, so we didn't see any sieging. I mean, it's a bit early. It's something that we're going to see have a lot more impact later on. And yeah, I see that Jake is highlighting. Unfortunately, K1 Pro has disconnected. Hopefully he can get back in sooner rather than later.
It's like the 7.5 minute mark is like the lucky time to disconnect. It seems like that's when we always have disconnects.
It is, that's a good point.
And, well, of course, we don't have a pause feature in this game, so we're just going to have to hope that his situation resolves itself for this game. But meanwhile, we could see the boss was picked up very quickly by Maelstrom as they had the advantageous position from that last fight over that tribute. And they're going to be able to quickly remove that fort.
Some options. They do have the tribute spawning bottom lane. It is a tribute that Evil Geniuses needs to capture. And I think if they are going to opt for it, especially considering that K1 Pro is not back in the game yet, they might want to try to avoid a team fight.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my goodness. The Divine Storm and the hook, but Metamorphosis with first aid is going to be enough to barely get out of that situation.
Nicely played from iDream. Will opt to use that Metamorphosis, like you mentioned, to escape over the wall. That was really close.
threads, like just pixels before he would have lost his life. Now we can see that it's going to be a very AoE style: the Napalm Strike, the Bile, the Defiant Storm, and the Stage Dive. So they have to be careful in those situations where they all get dived on. But they're still in this position where they do not have K1 Pro. It's still a Vala bot, so it's really hard for them to do much of anything.
Yeah, they have to play it safe for now and just take mercenary camps where it's available to them. They really want to try to avoid team fighting as much as possible, as without the fine control, especially considering that Rain of Vengeance is grabbed for Vala. The placing on that is very precise. And, I mean, of course, it goes without saying, but in terms of getting the most effectiveness and blowing up that one target that they choose to go after, whether it be one of the healers or Hammer, it has to line up, and so they need to avoid fighting as long as possible. But now
we got to look at the talent choice by the Vala bot too. Tempered by Discipline, not at all a good talent choice. Not something that would ever be picked up in a competitive game. So that's even once he comes back into the game, if he's able to reconnect, he's going to be at a disadvantage in that regard. Because of the Vala bot, they have no choice but to give up that tribute, which gives EG the first curse of the game.
Still very unfortunate. They are still opting to not go for any team fights. Of course, with that missing member, gosh, this is rough. There's not a whole lot to say. I mean, Evil Geniuses, they can only wait for so long in terms of being good mannered, but at some point you have to just draw the line. They have the curse.
Like we talked about, this is their tournament life when it comes to playoffs. If they lose here, that's lights out.
Right.
But not necessarily the case for Maelstrom, because Maelstrom, they can still win next week, and that's a whole array of other situations, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But yeah, they're just continuing to push forward with their curse, and as a result, they've caught up in experience.
Good points, and this fort will actually bring the experience lead between both teams just about even. All right.
Now, ETC is doing the split push, and that's something that's very valuable because ETC has stage dive. At any moment, he can stage dive back into battle. We can see K1 Pro has restored his connection, and I'm not actually sure yet. So he's still got to catch up.
That's still about like a 2 or 3 minute delay while the server catches up, unfortunately. So he's basically looking at the game from the start, going through fast forward until he's able to get back into the game. Right. That's a good sign. He will get there eventually, so we will continue to see this very passive play out of Maelstrom until he can get back in. Just try to hold that experience lead that Evil Geniuses is likely to pick up moving forward. Just try to keep it at a minimum. Now,
it's good to note the game is in beta.
Yes.
So the reconnect feature is, of course, one of those very beta features. Fortunately, it at least works, but it's shoddy. It's shoddy at the least.
Yeah, it does take some time. Like you mentioned, it is there, and it's nice that this game isn't completely lost just because he did disconnect.
Right.
And they just need to sort of buy time.
Well, and as they do that, they're just going to keep staying in their base. This Vala patiently obeying his team because you can ping her to follow a specific hero, and that hero has been designated as Dunk Train, it seems.
All right, let's talk about some of the potential level 16 talents that we're likely to see for Evil Geniuses. I fully expect to see that Pulverize. Some of the chain stuns. Is it going to be enough to locate? Oh, no.
The meta goes in, but I like this idea of the stage dive. They use it reactively. They thought that the Illidan was going to metamorphosis here. So ZP's actually reactively threw the stage dive, trying to zone him out, but the meta was thrown into a different location. Still not quite enough to stay alive, and the hook was actually canceled by the Lunar Flare, but once again comes back out and secures that kill on the Vala bot.
Wow. Okay. I mean, the positioning from iDream, you can't blame anyone but iDream for that. He did stick his neck out just a little bit past that wall, and good on Faye to recognize the situation and go for that hook to make sure that they were able to pick up the kill. So this keep is going to go down, and there's very little that Maelstrom can do to try and contest it.
Caffeine is just trying to split their attention, trying to keep them like on their toes, and in the meantime, there are Giants pushing this top lane, and we can see that EG is going to opt to rotate up. Faye looking for a hook on anyone that steps out, and not going to actually do it. The arrow will connect, give them complete vision of this boss being taken, but until they have Vala, they really have no ability to continue to contest this.
They can't do it, and it's even too risky for them to try and go to the other side of the map to grab the offensive Giant like Evil Genius is doing. They just don't know what the rotation is going to be out of them. They could choose to do a myriad of options and punish them for it because of the positioning of the Vala is not something that can be consistent. K1 Pro back in the game.
That's good.
Has the damage been done?
It's not over. Now, they are certainly behind. Fortunately, they were ahead before all of this happened. So K1 Pro finally back in. It's finally a 5v5 game. And the tribute count has been reset. So all things considered, they endured a curse, and they only lost one team with a 4v5. And this boss is going to get minimal damage done, and they can regroup. Experience, it's not out of control. 1 level deficit is... It's not good, but it's not bad. So it's gonna come down to a few team fights at this point.
All right, excuse me, guys. I see that Sonya does have imposing presence. Completely forgot about that. It is a rare pickup for her. I don't see it too often, so
really?
that's important.
Now Kubi, of course, a Sonya player.
Yeah, I know. Really, it's shame on me for not remembering that.
We all do it, my friend. And but on the other side of the map, we see the double imposing presence because it's equally as powerful versus a hero like Illidan. So they have the Illidan auto attack, they have the follow, and even the Sonya auto attack. So imposing presence, of course, that's the 50% attack speed reduction for your basic attacks.
Yes. All right, we have that double vault. Such a great pickup for Vala. More often than not, we would see something like Stone Scan, and Faye has been initiated on. With Future Bio going down to disengage.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the heroics are not optimal, but a huge ice block on Biceps with that Tranquility keeping him alive. Ancestral Healing used kind of early on Idra. Will it matter in the long run? It's hard to say. The Healing Ward with the Tranquility and just the nice pathing that we saw out of Biceps is able to keep him alive, and Maelstrom is doing it. They're pushing forward. They out-sustained. How big that Malfurion play, I can't stress enough at how big it was. The Lunar Flare securing an ace. They come back with their 5th player, and suddenly they just completely flip a team fight like nothing. Kubi's face is actually just, he's in disbelief.
I am. It's so difficult from just a team perspective to say, okay, we've had a player of ours disconnect for over 3 minutes of the game. It's got to be lost, right? So we have this blue team is now cursed. They have the rest of the members of Evil Geniuses down for an entire 20 seconds. This isn't going to be the end of the game, but man, are they going to get some damage done. They're backing up to clean up the golem.
Ignore the wall. Get the keep. Move up. Get another keep. None of the towers shoot you during a curse, and they don't have anyone to contest you. So this is a very safe, very intelligent option.
They're going to back up. They're going to continue taking these towers down to get the experience. They do have the experience lead now, putting them ever closer to level 20 where you get those impactful talents.
Woo! I mean, K1 Pro, look at this. He's using this build. He's using this weird style. He's using Tempered for discipline and tumble. And he's
showing you the versatility of K1 Pro and Vala. So that last fight, Malfurion. They came so close to killing him, Evil Geniuses did, and just the positioning that he was in, it was like almost a body block when it came down to it, because he was holding them in place, and then the Rain of Vengeance was very nicely positioned to allow for a ton of stuns. And what did I say about stuns for Illidan?
With Idra here, if they caught wind, okay, he's going to back up. Yeah. Of course, Faye was, waiting for the pull into their base as well. And with this Farsight, they have to be incredibly cautious, because the second they step on that camp, so they baited out.
Wow.
They're going to force Chef into that Lunar Flare, but the cleanse will keep him safe and allow him to back on out of that situation. But no matter what, no matter how you look at it, Maelstrom did manage to steal that giant camp.
King Caffeine, I will say he outplayed. He outplayed with the baiting of the hook. That was nicely done. And it's scary to do that, right? Because you don't know exactly when he's going to throw the hook. They don't have vision of when he starts the animation. They just can expect the hook because the vision is there.
Right.
So Evil Genius says, okay, as soon as they step onto it, throw the hook, we'll get a kill out of it. And he steps in, baits the hook. That allows them, it gives them a huge positional advantage from there forward, because their tank, or one of their tanks, is already on the other side of the wall, won't be able to get to the fight in time.
Yeah. Now, there's no fishing hook. If there was fishing hook, that hook would be much easier to execute, but they did opt for Pulverize. And, well, we see level 20 has been attained first here by Cloud9. They've turned this around. They've actually taken the advantage, and we have Hardened Shield on Sonya. So if she wasn't hard to kill before, look at her now. That's 4 seconds of 75% reduction in all damage received.
Sure, as soon as they try to throw the focus onto her, 75% damage. That is quite a bit. The rewind for Tyrande, double Lunar Flare with an already...
Oh, it's so scary. It's so scary.
Once if they get the lockdown, that secures even more time with that Rain of Vengeance. Oof. Yeah, you mentioned it.
I mean, you used to have to give up Lunar Blaze to get rewind. And in some sense, you could actually consider like the rewind move to level 20 on Tyrande a buff, because Lunar Blaze is such a good talent, and when you can have 2 of them in a team fight, it's so much lockdown.
All right, Cloud9 Maelstrom. opting to take the somewhat safe play. They're backing up, taking their golem. This is going to apply quite a bit of pressure into the top lane. Do they opt to continue pushing with it? They can split push. They can continue, and they can back up and take more mercenary camps. As we can see, the bruisers are available. Evil Geniuses just going up here to check. Shath, of course, does have that cleanse and sprint available in his kit, so he can find himself getting out of a lot of sticky situations that doesn't involve using a heroic like ETC might have to.
Caffeine's got to be careful. He is out by himself, but he's doing just that. They don't know he's by himself.
Right.
So he's just kind of being a bully right now, gathering information on their position. And as they see that, of course, Evil Geniuses is backing up to defend this boss, as they must. Well, this is going to open this window for the second boss to be picked up by Maelstrom.
We have seen Caffeine taking some of these more forward positions to get the scouting. We haven't talked a lot about the fact that it's sort of an overlooked feature of Wrath of the Berserker, but you do get 50% CC reduction while you're in the form, right?
Great point.
That explains why he's so far forward, like in this position, and there's going to be a fight over this boss.
It's so risky going with ZPs and Faye like this when you don't have the rest of the team lined up, and they are going to end up paying for it. We see the Storm Shield coming out. The extra shielding is keeping King Caffeine so very alive, and it looks like Cloud9 has actually taken 0 damage. Idra gets the Ancestral, but it's not going to be enough as the team just kind of dives and blows them up. Lunar Flare going to connect, and that is going to be an ace, and that is going to be GG for Maelstrom taking the series.
Yes, and this puts Evil Geniuses down into the relegation, unfortunately. But I got to give credit to C9 Maelstrom. They played even from that deficit of having the player disconnected so well, and the way they positioned themselves for those team fights was just so on point.
Yeah, it's especially when you're playing down for a lot of the game. You have a disconnected player, and you have this Vala that not only you finally get him back later into the game, and you're now down. You lost your advantage, and you're now behind. And your Vala has an unoptimal build because the bot's like, oh yeah, I want this talent, and this talent sounds great. It's gonna be fabulous. We're gonna tumble twice. It's gonna be wonderful.
That's the voice of
That's
Vala?
what bots sound like.
Right.
No, it's just
Good
the
to
bot.
Just
That's
bots.
the bot
Okay.
voice.
Good to know. Good to know.
But it's
it shows the power and how comfortable Maelstrom is with their team now. We saw a bit of a rocky start for them at the beginning of this group stage. The games that they've been playing lately have been so good. And it's Maelstrom of a month and a half ago that we were seeing that was dominating so hard.
People forget that K1 Pro and iDream were actually playing on Vortex.
They were,
and they've now been absorbed into Maelstrom in this squad. Like you said, rocky at the start of the league, but not anymore.
They look very comfortable.
They look very comfortable. But Kobe, let's take a look at those standings one more time, because this is the big story. So when we add these numbers up, that's going to put EG at 3-4, and this puts Maelstrom at 3-3. Now, Murlocs, they were supposed to play today, but Synapsis Gaming has forfeited out of the league, so they got a free win. They're 3-3. The final game for Murlocs and Maelstrom of the group stage is next week, and they're facing each other.
It doesn't get any better than that. They're both in control of their destiny. Moving into the playoffs, whichever is the better of a simple best 2 out of 3. These teams have been playing so well up until this point, and they get to control it.
Yeah.
So you better believe that those two teams are going to be putting in their homework, making sure that they take this game.
Yeah. And what that means in the end of the day is it means either Maelstrom or Murlocs will end at 4-3. So no matter what, someone will place above EG, because EG's final standing is 3-4.
Right, and we have to look at, if that happens to be Maelstrom will have won the heads up. It also goes to match score as well. Match score before the heads up. If they end up tying, since Maelstrom has beaten Evil Geniuses, of course we just saw that, they're going to get the 5th seed for relegations, which is very important. That allows you to choose your opponent moving into the relegation portion of this league.
Right, so just to branch on that topic a little bit, relegations is teams 5 through 8. The bottom 4 teams will fall down to relegations. They will be facing 4 teams that have advanced from the ESL Go4Heroes monthlies. So they get, like you said, the 5th seed chooses their opponent. 6th seed then chooses their opponent. So you get to pick these names out of a hat as to who you say. It's like, okay, well, we think we can body these guys, so we want to go against them.
Right. It's a very big advantage to have, regardless of the fact that you're in relegations, but still you have that, and that gets you into next season number 2.
It's true. So. It's true, but of course, playoffs, that's where the money is. Right. In Maelstrom and Murlocs, next week they're fighting for that Bakubi.
Yes.
You know who else is fighting next week?
Who?
Tempo Storm and Barrel Boys.
Oh yes, how could I forget? Wait, is that no? That's Thursday.
Was that Thursday?
I think it's Thursday.
Oh my!
And we've also been really waiting for that match
Oh.
because, of course, up until I think last week, was it last week that happened? We had been seeing that #1 spot between Tempo Storm and Barrel Boys heavily contested between the two teams. Right now, Barrel Boys holds it, but anytime those two teams face off, it's always an exciting series to watch. And having that #1 seed moving in to playoffs is very, very important as well.
Right, but speaking about Thursday, it's going to be
Yes.
Lunatic Esports versus 2ARC Iliad.
Right.
Of course, 2ARC currently tied for that second place spot with Tempo Storm, but the second game of the night, that headline match, that is Tempo Storm versus Barrel Boys. NA's Titans, if you will.
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that because they have the standings, they have the record to prove it. So good for those guys, and we're very excited to cast that match. And we talked about Cloud9 Maelstrom versus Murlocs next week. That'll be happening next Tuesday, and then to round it out, we're gonna have Lunatic Esports versus Tempo Storm and Barrel Boys versus 2ARC. That will also be
That's going to be another huge series because that's going to determine the first place seeding. Because 2ARC, they are the ones that put the upset on Tempo Storm. They're the only team to have defeated Tempo Storm, and they've gotten themselves into that 4-1 tie. If they can defeat